Hey there! Welcome to Middle Age Crazy, the show that proves being an adult doesn't have to suck. With your host, Chuck T.
Welcome, come on in. It's time for the show, Middle Age Crazy Podcast. We prove that being an adult does not have to suck. I'm your host, Chuck T. Thanks for tuning in today. We really appreciate it. As always, we drop new episodes on the 1st and 15th of every month. It's the 15th, so let's rock and roll with a new show. And to kick things off, I want to let you know today's episode is sponsored by the Wrestling Soup Podcast. They're not a wrestling show, they're a show that happens to talk about wrestling. They're super entertaining, pro wrestling, pop culture, current events. They talk about it all. Check them out on Twitter at Wrestling Soup, as well as WrestlingSoup.com. And of course, the podcast, everywhere you find podcasts. Check them out. And I gotta give a big shout out, a big thanks to my last guest, Stu Johnson of The Pimps. What a fantastic episode that was. We got a ton of listens, we got a bunch of great feedback, and bottom line, it was the funniest one I've done so far. So Stu, thanks for checking us out. And remember, Stu's got that new tattoo shop that he's working with that started in Rockford, Illinois called Six Finger Tattoo. They're also on Facebook as well. Check them out. And of course on Facebook, if you want to find his band, I believe it's facebook.com, The Pimps Rockford. But don't quote me on that, and make sure you don't call them the Goodyear Pimps. Oh yeah, Stu and I have been chatting a little bit about him coming on the show again, and I might make a drive out to the tat shop this summer, do another interview with Stu, maybe some folks in the tattoo shop, get a tat myself, do a whole episode around the tattoo joint, so stay tuned, we're talking about doing that. Okay, really quick, we gotta do some housekeeping, give you that information that you need to hear each and every time you tune in. For starters, find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, at Middle Age Pod. If you want to send us an email, it's middleagecrazypod@gmail.com. And of course, the hotline is always open, 515-478-3412. You're welcome to give us a call, want to give someone a shout out, tell us you think we're doing a great job, tell us if you think we suck, you got an idea for a guest, just give us a call and say something crazy. We want to put you on the show. 515-478-3412. And before we get going on the interview, I want to do something a little different. I'm not sure if everybody out there is a Spotify user, but I'm sure over the last week or so, you're friends with somebody that uses Spotify, the streaming service. You probably saw it on social media, them kicking out the statistics of all the music they listen to over the course of the year. They call it the Wrapped, 2019 Wrapped. And I think, you know what, let's go through old Chuck T's 2019 Wrapped with Spotify, because I listen to a lot of music, a lot of different types of music. I'm all over the place, but I'm a huge music fan. I've been in bands. I've been recording and producing music for 20 years. I listen to weird shit. I make weird shit. Most of my friends are musicians. And so I figured it'd be worth going through, because I even surprised myself a little bit in this one. Normally I know what to expect when they give it to me at the end of the year. This one kind of surprised me, so let's get going. For starters, they go with the seasons. In the winter of 2019, I mostly listened to Czarface, which I'm not surprised. That's a great underground hip-hop group. It's Inspector Deck from Wu-Tang Clan and 7L and Esoteric. Check them out. Some Talking Heads. They're one of my favorite groups. Lizzo. I'm a huge Lizzo fan. Lucky enough to be in Minneapolis when she was on the come-up, so big Lizzo fan. And Joe Satriani. For some reason, I went through this instrumental heavy metal phase for a while, and that's going to be a theme through this. I go through weird phases of like, oh, I want to listen to that, and then I just crack out on it for weeks on end. Springtime's important. You want to remember these 4 bands, okay? Because I listen to a shitload of these bands in the springtime. Motley Crue, because, hey, I watched that movie The Dirt. I loved Motley Crue when I was in junior high, so I kind of went through a Motley Crue resurgence. I literally was listening to Motley Crue nonstop for a couple weeks after I watched the movie. Felt like I was in 8th grade all over again. And the Budos Band, which is a very difficult band to explain. They're instrumental. It's like a 10-person group out of, I believe, New York, but they play weird, funky instrumental stuff. They had a new album out. I can't explain them. You have to listen to them. They're called the Budos Band. Check them out. Jerry Reed. I listen to a ton of Jerry Reed because I go through those phases. When Burt Reynolds died, it's like, oh man, the bandit's dead. Rewatched the movie. Then I was like, shit, I forgot Jerry Reed, who played Snowman, the truck driver, had a ton of good music in the 70s. The dude's incredible on the guitar, crazy picker, and his songs are hilarious. So I listened to a bunch of Jerry Reed, and finally, and I still have no shame of this, I'm a 43-year-old man, and one of my favorite groups all time is ABBA. ABBA, whatever the hell you want to call them. I love me some ABBA. I cracked down on a bunch of ABBA this year. Then I got an Amazon Echo in my bathroom, and for some reason, whenever I was getting ready for work or going out for doing whatever, I listened to a boatload of ABBA this year. In the summer, more ABBA. I was rocking some Toto. I listened to a lot of Megadeth because I love heavy metal music, and Steely Dan. Huge Steely Dan fan. If you don't respect the Dan, you got to get your shit together. I was rocking a lot of Steely Dan this summer. And I'm not surprised by the stats from this fall. Listened to a lot of Tool because that new record came out. I really enjoyed the new Tool album. And I was listening to a bunch of Prince. He's one of my all-time favorites. And this year they were really cranking out some stuff from the vault. That 1999 Super Deluxe Remaster, the Prince original album of all the songs that he gave to other people, his original demos of that. So I was bumping a lot of Prince this year. And I couldn't believe this. I'm not super surprised, but I couldn't believe it. My mother would be so proud. My number one artist of the year was ABBA. I listened to more ABBA than anything this year. That kind of blows my mind. The rest didn't really surprise me. Number 2 was Prince. Like I said, Prince is one of my all-time favorites. Number 3 was Jerry Reed. Like I said, I went through a massive Jerry Reed phase where I was listening to him nonstop. A Motley Crue was number 5. But number 4 was interesting. This guy named Tariq Robinson. He's an MC from a Canadian rap group called Dragonfly Empire. I've been listening to them for probably about 15 years or whatever. They're still doing it. They're super talented. But the MC put out a beat tape, essentially an instrumental record of all Latin music with Latin samples and stuff like that. And it was so good. I literally listened to that Latin beat tape probably 50 times this year. Okay, as far as genre goes, I got a little bit of a bar graph here. I listen to more rock and roll than anything, and then hip hop, which I'm totally not surprised by that. They're my 2 favorite genres. And number 3 was classical, which didn't really surprise me either because I went through a bit of a classical phase because I watched the movie Amadeus like 6 times this year for some reason. Love that movie. And then funk and comedy stuff. I'm looking at, they have a whole thing about the decade because they kind of wrap up your decade too. It doesn't get any better. Last year, one of my top bands was Styx, and the album was Grand Illusion. I listened to that a lot, but also I can at least throw out, I listened to a shitload of Beatles the last few years too, so. But Styx, Grand Illusion, man, I was on a kick last year with that. Holy crap. And finally, to wrap it all up, I'm very proud of this because they're probably top 3 or 4 for me all-time bands. My artist of the decade was the Beatles. Listened to a shitload of Beatles. If I had to gun to my head top 5 bands across the board, not even including genre, just bands, I'd have to go Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, the Beatles, Beastie Boys, and shoot, I don't even know who my 5th one would be. Possibly Steely Dan, maybe? Or Metallica, maybe? I don't know. But Beatles are always up there. Other decade recap information, top artists, Steely Dan, Talking Heads, Pink Floyd, 311. All right, so that was my 2019 Spotify Wrapped. You can tell I'm all over the map as far as what I listen to, but that's what it's all about, right? No one's ever right and no one's ever wrong when it comes to music. It's all opinion. I give people shit all the time for listening to terrible music, and then if you saw my collection, you'd be like, what the fuck? From ABBA to Frank Zappa, I got it all, including Body Count. Love Ice-T heavy metal. Blah! Anyway, let's get the show rolling. My next guest I've been dying to interview ever since I started the show. A very interesting and talented woman bringing girl power to the independent professional wrestling scene. She's got a great story. One day she's in the crowd holding up a goofy sign with some bad words on it. Next thing you know, she's Twitter famous in the wrestling universe, and now she's actually working in the business. And she's got a little side action going on too. She's super entertaining on social media. She has a big focus about bringing attention to equality and inclusion in the professional wrestling business. And if you know anything about the business, it hasn't been super welcoming and friendly to a lot of different groups out there. So she's trying to change the game one promo at a time. You gotta follow her on Twitter. She'll crack you up even if you're not a pro wrestling fan. Let's do this. We're gonna talk to Felicia Rose. Here we go.
Hey everybody, I'm Felicia Rose. I'm 32 years old from Brooklyn, New York, and I'm here to talk about pro wrestling.
Hey, welcome to the show. It's the interview portion of the show, the part you've all been waiting for. I'm very excited about this week's guest. When I started putting together ideas for the Middle Age Crazy podcast, believe it or not, I had this woman in mind as an idea for one of my first guests because I know she has an interesting story. At least she says so on Twitter, so we're going to find out for sure. Felicia Rose, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I am doing delightful. I'm highest fuck and really drunk because it's like the day after my birthday. So,
Okay,
that's
that's
what
okay.
we're doing right now.
And that's perfect. That's perfect. And
How are you?
I'm doing good. You're young enough where you can let the birthday kind of drag along for a few days. But once you start doing that in your 40s and 50s, then someone's going to say you have a problem.
I mean, I didn't really do much, so I feel like having like an extra day of eating snacks and drinking beer, considering I did nothing for 3 days, it doesn't, it's not that big of a deal. It's not like I went out and partied. I literally stayed home and like watched TV. So.
All right. Well, there's plenty of good stuff to watch at least, right?
Yeah, I just needed like a minute to like be, a slob and eat snacks. So I did that.
No, perfect. Like you said in the intro, we're going to mostly talk about pro wrestling today. Keep in mind, this isn't a pro wrestling focused show, and I know you're probably on a lot of pro wrestling. You get asked on a lot of pro wrestling shows, I'm assuming, podcasts, whatnot. So yeah. You might take for granted some things that you and I might understand that the listener might not understand because they're not huge pro wrestling fans. So if I ask you to kind of slow down or dumb something down a little bit, it's just because we're gonna have to explain it a little more. Is that cool?
Totally fine.
All right, excellent. But I know I know enough people out there that are pro wrestling dorks like us, so it'll be cool. The pro wrestling culture, the pro wrestling internet community, what have you. I've been a fan for 40 years. Never been cool with the ladies. What got you interested in it?
I liked it when I was a kid, but I wasn't allowed to watch it. So that it just kind of dwindled because, if you can't really watch something, what's the point? But I would like sneak away and like watch it at friends' houses. But when I was an adult, a lot of my friends were into it and I wasn't super paying attention, but I'd watch it from time to time. And then I actually had an ex that was like, and it wasn't one of those things like I wanted to do what he's been to. It was just like he lived in my house and watched it fucking constantly. And it was all that was on in like a 1-bedroom apartment. So I had no like escape from it. And so, just over time, I just started to really pay attention because I started to enjoy what I was seeing. And I really liked like the NXT brand, which for the people that don't know is like, the brand that's kind of, it's a part of WWE, but it's like the step before you get to those main shows like SmackDown and Raw. So I really liked that stuff. And that got me really into just going to indie shows locally and stuff. And then from there, it just became, a part of my fucking life. So.
So I'm trying to timestamp it a little bit. So what year was that exactly that you were watching it? Your boyfriend was watching it constantly.
Now it was oh my God. I feel like time has flown. So 6 years ago, I guess now. Okay. 7. So it hasn't been too long that I like got back into it, but
okay.
Because it's so like my life is so saturated in it, I feel like I got like, fast forwarded into being like a super fan by just default. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I just couldn't. All my friends are into it. I have fans. It's now I'm working in the ring, so it's just a part of my life that like I can't really. Not that I want to get away from it, but I can't get away from it even if I wanted to, sort of thing. So
no, I get it. And I was mostly trying to timestamp it just so I'm like, okay, it wasn't before the product has totally gone to shit. Because I'm in the place where I have kind of one foot in the pool right now. I used to be a diehard like every show, every week, but one, I just don't have a ton of time. No. But two, I mean, Vince's products got kind of weak.
I don't give a shit anymore. Ever since I got kicked out of that Raw show after SummerSlam where I wasn't doing anything, the person next to me was causing a ruckus, and I literally was just standing alongside them. Like ever since then, I was just salty, and I'll pay attention here and there, especially when something epic is happening or, there's some like groundbreaking movement or something happening. But other than that, I don't care that much, really, to be honest. So.
Well, the product, I mean, it's so terrible right now. At least Vince's product is. It's just because there's too much of it.
Right. I don't, exactly. And it's just like, I can be more entertained with stuff going on in like the indies or the, just other promotions that are even on TV. So whatever.
All right. Without getting too sidetracked from your origin story, I do have a question though. How is the indie scene doing? Because I have a hard time keeping up with them. So like for a while, like the last 3 years, all I watched was NXT. And then when they switched to go on cable, I'm like, why am I paying for this now? And then I kind of watched a little AEW, but I've just been kind of in and out. But it feels like there's a lot of wrestling going on across the board. Is the indie scene doing pretty well these days?
I don't know, man. You're asking the wrong person because
Okay.
like I'm a part of it, so it's hard. But I'm also like still a fan of the product. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean it's doing really well, especially at specific promotions. Like there's certain promotions that are doing extremely well, like Beyond and Limitless, and like fucking I'm not gonna remember them off the top of my head because I'm drunk. But there's
That's
like
cool.
just so many, you know, like even like MLW, like just all of these like really good brands that are putting on really good shows across the country, and it's consistent. But what I will say is that I'm seeing a lot of the same talent being used over and over, and it's almost like people are kind of like they're putting a time limit on how long until these people get scooped for something like an AEW or even just going to the performance center to train, which is, you know, the step before NXT kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're trying to maybe just like use that talent like before that happens, maybe, or it's just that they want to see a draw every time. But I am seeing like just a lot of the same names being used over and over. And I'm not saying within the same like some promotions they do that obviously for storyline purposes, and that's great. But I'm talking about like, you know, we'll see a show that literally looks the same from one promotion to the next, like from a Friday to a Saturday, and then on a Sunday it's like half that same roster. You know, it's just like,
Okay.
I don't know. It's not. I obviously there's opportunities for everybody out there. If you work hard enough, you'll get those opportunities. But I will say there are a lot of people that definitely don't have a spotlight on them that deserve it. And you know, I hopefully will see them get their time. But I don't know if it's just because, you know, some promoters just have a hard on for certain talent and they just want to bring them in every time. You know, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I see a lot of that, like, you know, building your dream matches kind of thing happening where promoters are sometimes still fans. And I'm not going to talk shit because most of the promoters that I've ever worked with or for or around or near are amazing. But I just see it once in a while splashed here and there. And that's kind of like, you kind of roll your eyes. You're like, oh, that's the same show that's on every other card for every other show for every other week. You know,
No, I get it. All right.
So.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Where like I'll see some like local guys like around like where I live, for example, that are getting, you know, an opportunity and maybe the promotion that they train, but outside of that, they're not really getting as much heat as some of these other people that, and I think that they deserve it. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm biased because I'm paying more attention to certain people, but either way, I just hope everybody gets their chance to shine, you know?
Yes. Because, I mean, without getting into the whole thing, it's a tough business, one, to break into, let alone feed yourself on. So, you know, the more jobs, the better, in my opinion, because I've been a fan for 40 years. Here's how I want to kind of get going on your story, though. Here's how I heard about you, first discovered you, quote unquote. I'm a big fan of the Wrestling Soup podcast. Shout out to Miss Joe Numbers and Draper. It was right after that NXT show. I forgot what sign you had, but you got somehow, I don't know, did you actually make the pay-per-view TV, or did someone just take a picture of you? But you held up a really...
It was just a photo.
It was just a photo of you saying something dirty.
Yeah, it said "Face fuck me, Finn," and it was on a piece of cardboard.
Face fuck me,
and
Finn.
I held it up like I think 2 times for like 10 seconds total, like altogether, just because I didn't want to get kicked out. I really wanted to see that match, and I knew what I was doing was potential like kick out. But nobody was looking at me as far as like there's no kids around. Nobody was like looking up. I made sure everybody was looking forward. It was during entrance. You know, it was very specifically timed, but one person. Literally, if you look back, there's not a single other photo out there aside from like one fan, like when I was walking out, took one picture, but that's the literal only photo of me like holding it up at the show, meaning that nobody really saw it, because if they had, there would be a lot more photo evidence of it. You know what I mean? So like I was very strategic, like held it up very briefly, and I was walking out later on after the show, and there's like people on the street, they're like, "Hey, you're on Botchamania." I was like, "Oh shit." Well, because originally, like, I had seats in like section 221, way up in the frickin' nosebleeds, and then my friends were like, "Hey, we're down in section 4. There's nobody behind us, and it's second to last match. Come sneak down here." And so we did. We walked down. We weren't in anybody's seats, so we're like, "All right, let's enjoy the show." And then I'm like, "Oh wait, I have this money. Fine. Maybe I'll just hold it up for like 5 seconds, like whatever." And then like they'll take it away or something. And I held it up. Nobody took it away. But, you know, nobody really like paid that much attention because it's so quick. But one photo got taken, and then, you know, my mom was like, "Why am I seeing you on YouTube?" I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Okay, that's my question. What happened next? How fast did the internet Twitter thing kind of take off?
Well, the biggest thing was nobody knew that was me. So
Okay.
they just knew that there's this chick. I wasn't like, nobody knew who I was on like wrestling Twitter or anything. I was very not much like, not a part of the wrestling scene. I had a few friends that liked wrestling. That's it.
Okay.
You know, like I didn't involve myself in that world online. So then people started to put two and two together, and I was like, well, fuck it, let's just do this, because there were so many people talking shit on like Reddit and whatnot. I was like, well, fuck this. You can't tell me why I should be here, why I shouldn't be here. I'm gonna do this on purpose now. So every time everybody would talk shit, I would just make a new sign and bring it to another show, like an apple.
Well, what was the second one? Was that the finger?
Yeah, it was finger blasphemy, like FINN.
For those that don't know, she's in reference to a wrestler named Finn Balor, and the guy looks like a fucking underwear model.
Yeah, I mean,
Finn's carved out of marble, so I can get it. I get it.
the other one was finish on my face, with FINN. And then no flips, just fist me. Come here, rude boy, is you big enough? And big was spelled out with rulers. Silver Bullet Club with like dildos on it.
I don't
yeah,
remember
I just
that
went
one.
in, you know. Oh, I made shirts out of that one.
I can't remember if I saw that one or not. That's hilarious because I always like the play off of the Revival's deal, the no flips, just fists. I thought that was hilarious.
That was like my number one selling shirt. So
as far as the T-shirts go and just merch, I'm going to start banking off of this quote unquote publicity. How long did it take to get going?
I mean, I never banked off of it. It was more like I wanted people to just like have a laugh, and I sold shirts, but also gave shirts away. Like, I don't know. I made shirts. I literally made shirts within like 6 months of that happening, just because I was like, fuck everybody, you know? And
Okay.
it said, the back of it said, it was a picture of me holding the sign that said, give me your demon semen. And like, kind of like that Boston hardcore, like old school, like t-shirt. And I sent them down to like Finn and them down there. They had a laugh. So
yeah. I've noticed that because I'm not a diehard Twitter user. I'm on it enough, but I'm not a diehard. I think there's like kind of a few different levels of quote unquote internet fame. I mean, there's like people that are just Twitter internet famous. There's famous people, but the pro wrestling community has a very interesting community, I would say, online.
Yeah.
How fast did things kind of pick up for you? I mean, did you start getting like options to do podcasts, people wanting to talk to you about it? How fast did people start connecting the dots? It was you. Here's this woman that's going to these shows with these crazy signs. She's also, a wrestling junkie.
It took like 6 months to like catch up or whatever, but people had already had me on. Like, I think the first interview I did was maybe like 5 months after on another wrestling podcast, and that got me started. And then I did Wrestling Soup, and that was just soon after. So, I mean, it was within like 6 months to a year that people really put two and two together. And then it was like the second sign, the third sign, the fourth sign, and then the fifth me sign, I think, is what really like did it. So,
well, yeah, obviously. The pro wrestling industry is interesting because, I mean, it's constantly evolving, but it's a good old boys show. It always has been, and it's always been very interesting towards women, minorities, foreigners, stuff like that. How did the internet wrestling community, all the boners in their mom's basements eating the Cheetos, react to you kind of taking off and being this strong woman?
Like I said, that's why I made more signs, because people were horrible to me, and I don't really want to get into that because it's just like you can find the evidence of it yourself. But like, essentially, people, I'm a ring rat, I'm a whore. My mom would be, I should kill myself. My mom isn't proud of me. All these things. But like, for every 10 people that hated me, there'd be like 40 people that liked me. So at that point, I learned like working, like not working, but like just not worrying about heat, because I literally had like a little like vlog, whatever thing back in the day, like 11 years ago, where I talked about sex. I wrote about sex in like my school newspaper. I was voted most flirtatious in high school. I was always like the filthy bitch, even if I like wasn't even boning, like that's just who I was. I knew the most about sex. I talked about it, and I never wanted people to have shame surrounding it. And I understand that there's like a time and a place for things, and that's why I calmed down my like overtness. And like I said, the first thing was a mistake, but what I wanted to do essentially was just make sure people understood, like, who gives a fuck why people are there, a woman or a man alike. We're there for a reason, and let's all just enjoy the product and shut the fuck up about it. Like, stop calling women ring rats. stop worrying about if they're there because guys are hot. Guys are there because women are hot. Who gives a shit? As long as everybody respects one another and it isn't some fucking creepy crap going on. And yeah, I get it. My signs were creepy, but every sign after the first one I literally got permission to make, essentially. Maybe not one or two of them, but like every sign, most of the signs after that, like I literally asked direct permission ahead of time. So like people don't know that aspect, but even still, that wasn't the point of that. It's just like, don't show up to like an indie show and be fucking creepy is my point, and like things like that. But at the same time, if we show up and we're appreciating like what we're looking at, that's not up for you to fucking worry about either. You know, as long as everybody's respectful and acts like fucking adults, show the fuck out about it, you know?
I think that's kind of funny as far as guys having a problem with women getting the shine a little bit or whatever. Because you go back and look at some of those interviews with Nash and Hall talking about the Monday Night War, and it was Sable segments that were kicking their ass. You know, they'd get monster segments. So of course, men are going there for hot women and vice versa.
Well, and women were sexualized like in the ring for so fucking long. My other
terrible.
point is like, let one person make this about, like, show what it looks like on the other side. Like, this is what it looks like. It is that ridiculous. Your visceral reaction is exactly how it should have been for everybody else 20 years ago or 15 years ago when people were doing that shit to the women. You know what I mean? So, like, whatever. And also, at the end of the day, me holding a sign toward a man is never going to be the same as a man holding a sign toward a woman because of obviously power and the way that works in American society. So I don't want to hear any bullshit about how like I'm sexually harassing in some kind of threatening way. I'm sorry, that's not how that works. So everybody can blow me in that way. You know?
I love that answer. And that's why we're talking today.
Because it's true. I mean, you know, women don't yield that same exact power as far as, you know, being a threatening, menacing, you know, individual society. It's a patriarchal society. So at the end of the day, I'm never going to be as threatening holding a sign for a dude as a woman, or as a man holding a sign for a woman. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And I'm not trying to go all feminist here, but being pro-woman doesn't necessarily mean being anti-man either. I think there's...
But it's understanding that there is a difference.
Yeah,
and the difference is that I'm allowed to do it and you're not, bitch. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not kidding, but like I am, you know.
No, it's and you're. I mean, if you think about it, you're kind of challenging the status quo a little bit, which is good because I mean, I don't know about you, but I think the industry's been kind of boring the last few years. At least it needs that kind of shakeup.
Well, I mean, there's been a ton of women that have now held up signs, obviously not as filthy, but similar signs. I can think of 5 off the top of my head. There's a girl that has the Seamus's daddy sign that she brings to every show. We know what that means. You know, yes,
that's fantastic.
That's not as overt as mine, but it's still there, and we all know what it means. And now look at the product; it's changing. They're doing cock segments now and saying words like that. You know,
I know.
Like,
like what the fuck?
I'm sorry, but like I understand. I said something naughty on a sign that only like 2 people saw, but y'all are talking about cocks on TV, so I don't want to fucking, you know. I just fucking started it over again.
Fucking poor Rusev, right?
Oh, poor baby.
I know. Okay, well, I want to keep going, but I want to talk about a little bit now that we know how you established yourself. Okay, who's the first person that gave you your break in the biz that said, "Come be a talent on a show I'm putting on"?
So my good friend Chris from upstate, he immediately saw like what I did and was like, I get it. He got like the whole feminist angle of like, this is different, da da da, whatever. And we had done a radio show together for a little bit. And like I would go on and answer questions about sex or just talk about sex in general. Mm-hmm. And one day he was at my house after he'd come back from Germany, and he was like just, I don't know, brainstorming about, hey, I want to start this new promotion. This is what I'm going to call it, all this shit. And I was like, yeah, I can help you with that stuff. Like I have, you know, a background in business, and I know how to do X, Y, Z and get sponsorship materials and all this shit. And then he was like, yo, would you ever manage a wrestler at one of my shows? And I was like, what? Like never. I've been asked to like ballet before, literally just come out and like hop around, but never actually like.
That's not the same as That's not the same as a manager, though. The manager's working.
Sure ain't.
Okay, good.
Well, you know, I I don't take bumps, but there's a difference between coming out and not saying a word and coming out and talking on a mic. You know what I mean? So he was like, would you do that? And I was like, sure. And so I agreed to it. I don't know why. I'm an extremely anxious person. Even though I have like a background in theater and performance, it's been so long and my anxiety has gotten crazy in my elder years, if you will. So,
I get it.
Just the idea, I couldn't even go to a wrestling show because I was nervous people would recognize me unless, my face was perfect. And, you know what I mean? I was just so anxious to be in public in general. So then the idea of, me getting into a wrestling ring and talking on a microphone where people are supposed to boo me most of the time, I'm like, Jesus. But I did it, and I had 2 shows in the same weekend because then somebody else was, booking the person I was dating at the time, and he was like, hey, would you manage your boyfriend, which is Jay George? And I was like, yeah, fucking let's do it, sure. So I had 2 shows in the same weekend, back to back, and I was so nervous, and it was scary, but I did all right, I guess. I don't know. They were probably not great, but either way, I had a good time, and then from there, I've worked a bunch of shows, and it's fun, and I'm addicted, and it sucks because, I could probably spend my Saturdays doing something different, but I don't really want to.
Well, if it's fun, you enjoy doing it, the camaraderie with the people, I'm assuming, is awesome, and you make a little bit of money, that can't suck.
I don't know about making money. I mean, I just get there and back.
Okay. So is it really? It's not a hot dog and a handshake, is it?
I'll put it this way. No, I've been very fair though about working my way up. I understand that I don't wrestle, so I don't bring the same quality of entertainment to anything that somebody that will wrestle and will take bumps can do. I'll do little spots here and there. I'll do interruptions, that I can practice at a time and shit. But I obviously cannot bring as much to the table as somebody who can wrestle. So because of that, I'm very fair about pricing. But I basically just make, as long as my travel's taken care of, that's my biggest thing. But even, there's been past shows where, I didn't even get paid to begin with. It was coming out of pocket. So now I'm, at least trying to, cover my travel because I can't have a negative anymore for it. I just can't. I can't physically, afford it because my other job doesn't pay that much either.
Yeah, life's expensive, man. Shit.
But, I've progressively been able to, up my price a tiny bit just to accommodate for, my actual travel instead of going, broke from the show. So.
Well, that's good.
It's fun. It's worth it, though. I know how it works. I know that, I have to prove my worth. So, let's get me in there and see how I do. And if you like me, now I have a permanent spot. And that usually is what ends up happening is that I get a permanent spot at a lot of the places that I work, which is really cool. Or at least an ongoing, reoccurring. It might not be every show, but it'll be every other show or something like that.
Okay.
So.
How many shows do you think you've worked since you started getting involved?
At one point, I was working at least 1 show a week, and that was great. But I don't know, probably I don't know. Oh, fuck, I'm bad at guessing numbers. Maybe 40-ish, maybe 50-ish. I'm still super green, but also I'm working consistently right now, which is cool. So there was a period of time where there's only one place that's really booking me locally, and because another place had closed down, and then there was a gap in time for some other place, and they ended up firing me for doing porn, even though they knew I did porn. But
Lame.
somebody called one of the buildings and complained
or
something, even though they had people doing far worse that were on their roster. But I was like, yeah, that's cool. So then I just decided I wasn't willing to work with them at any of their shows, that building or not.
Jeez, what fucking year is this?
That took probably a good 6 months for me to recoup from and try to get booking. I still was getting booked, but it was just more sparse, every couple weeks instead of every weekend I'm kind of getting now. So
yeah, that was kind of where I was trying to lead us to. How long did it take to go from I did a few spot shows to I can work every weekend if I want to? Did it take 6-8 months up to a year to get that rolling?
Oh, with that bump in the road, it definitely took a little bit longer. So, and then also I broke up with the person that I was managing. We were going to do a lot more at different promotions. So that was a piece of it. But then I got taken on by Steve Mack and Magic. Then I started working almost every weekend again. And then I got fired from my place, kind of. I don't know, whatever that was. And then I tried to find new places and new people, and I was still working, for Syracuse at Wild Zero, for example, but they only run every so often. So there was like these little gaps in time. But now I'm working for Imperial World Wrestling, which is, they were supposed to run the other day, but they had to cancel their show. So like I just had 3 bookings and then 0 in the same weekend.
Okay.
Shit gets crazy, So yeah, I mean, it went from like, it took probably 6 months to get consistent bookings, and then there was a gap in time, and now I'm getting them again. So I probably have like 3 to 4 a month at this point, which is nice.
Cool. And you go all the way up to Syracuse to work, huh?
I'd go to, right now I work in Syracuse, Rochester, Ohio, Reading, Pennsylvania, Southern New Jersey, and Queens, New York.
Look at you hitting the loop and all.
Yeah, just making my way through the wherever that is, Delaware, whatever. Fuck that thing's called.
Next time you're in Syracuse, my parents are both from Syracuse, so I've been there a boatload of times. If you haven't been to Hyde's hot dog stand, you got to check it out.
Oh, hell yeah, I love hot dogs. I'm going.
Then they have this special thing. It's called they call it a Cooney, not to be confused with a Coney Island dog. It's a Cooney. You just got to go and check it out.
Sounds good. Thank you for the suggestion.
Yes. Anytime I talk to anyone that goes to Syracuse, that's like the only fucking thing I remember about Syracuse.
Fair enough.
Do you find yourself having to ask for bookings, or is everything kind of coming to you now? Like, hey, we want to book you and whoever you're managing, and then we have a storyline that goes on for a few weeks. How does it go?
So, Truth Zone, I've never asked for a booking.
Cool.
I will actually, no, I'll take that back. I asked one person for a booking recently, and I think I might get it, which is cool. But I had met them, so like that made sense. But yeah, I've never asked for booking. I've been offered all of them, which is for some reason in my head it makes me feel better about everything. I guess like it makes me feel better about like the money I asked for. It makes me feel better about like them wanting me and it being something that, because a lot of the times these people are bringing me in to give me a role there. Either I'm an in-ring, interviewer, or I'm a advocate for a women's division, or I'm a member of the authority, or I'm managing one of the people on their roster eventually through the storyline. So like things like that, I obviously need to have a build to that, and I need to be able to like come in and do that often. So I feel like that is right now, what people are kind of looking at me for. So I don't know. I'm just not asking places to book me because I don't want to have these like one-off spots. I want to have like things that I can build on and actually go back and have like a regular place that I work. Just because I don't have a home base right now,
Okay.
It kind of sucks. I don't have a place around here that wants to use me, like unless I train to take bumps and.
Fuck that. You don't want to do that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a level to it that I'm willing to do, and I'm still going to. It's just I don't have the right place around here to do it at. But
you're not gonna.
I still don't. I'm not going to offer it.
You're not going to go over to Jersey and go to the Monster Factory? Isn't that place still open?
No, it is, but it's far away from me, regardless of if I wanted to go or not. You know what I mean?
Right on.
I don't have a car, so I'm at like like somebody offered a booking the other day, and they offered an amount instead of asking my fee, and it didn't even cover my travel. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I never would say no before, but I'm like, I can't lose money this year on it. That's my number one goal, is just to break even.
Yeah. No,
so,
I get it.
I'm pretty poor. It really sucks. Like I live like sandwich to sandwich sometimes, so it's just like I got to do what I got to do. And I'm not complaining. I mean, I enjoy it, but I feel like, some people come from a little bit more privilege when they do this kind of stuff, and some people don't. And I mean, good for everybody that is doing this like DIY style, but that's kind of like, that's how I'm rolling right now, taking buses everywhere and shit.
Hey man, it's hard to eat off of your art. I mean, if you're somebody that creates or does entertainment or something interesting like that, it's not easy to eat off of that. And that's kind of the through line through a lot of my conversations is these people that find a way to have what I would deem a cool or interesting career and or hobby or interest, and still being able to pull that off, because the older you get, the more difficult life fucking gets,
Right.
Just organizing to do this interview tonight. I'm like, okay, I can't put the kid to bed tonight. My studio's in the basement next to the furnace, so I have to turn everything off. And so it has to be like a whole production just to record, for us to talk for 45 minutes. I couldn't imagine what it's like having to try to schedule booking these shows around a normal gig. But before we wrap up, do you have an end goal as far as what you're trying to accomplish besides losing money? I mean, do you have, what are you trying to,
No,
what are you trying to get with it?
I'm having a good time. I don't want to complain. I mean, I'm just saying like,
are you trying to make it to one of the big shows, or is this just a passion you're acting out on the weekends because you have the ability and the time and the wherewithal to do it?
I definitely don't have the ability or time or wherewithal. I'm making it happen because I really love it. Is what it is. No, I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's not easy. I often have to take 9-hour bus rides, and I'm by myself a lot, and I show up and I'm underprepared and underslept, and I probably do just a mediocre job, and then I beat myself up, and then the person that maybe I sit outside with tells me that I wasn't great, and then I want to murder myself. And I go through these emotions of oh my God, what am I doing to myself? But then I'm not gonna lie, as soon as my goddamn entrance music hits and I walk out and I get to fucking command a crowd of people with a microphone and look out and see, even if it's an all adult group, but to see women looking at me and little girls looking at me and teenagers looking at me who are like, wow, this person in this ring, this woman in this ring is making this entire room of people listen to her right now. That's a really powerful feeling. And I feel like I'm not done leaving my mark on that world yet.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I say you keep going because it just seems like it's getting better for you.
I mean, I love it so much. I can't stop, even with I just wanted to say it's not an easy thing, and it's not something that I was just handed. I had to work for this. It was taken away from me multiple times in different ways, and I had to get back off my ass and fucking figure it out and find new people to work for and with, and I did it. And I still want to do it just because I really like performing and I like entertaining. And there's nothing better than being able to do something like I did at Atomic a couple weeks back, where I had an in-ring interview with a wrestler that's openly bisexual, and I'm bisexual. So we got to do this little bit where I basically called him a bitch, but we played on our bisexuality, and I got out of the ring, and there's this 14-year-old little girl, teenager, not a little girl, but teenage girl that comes up to me and is just I just wanted to let you know that I'm really excited that you said you were bisexual, because I've never heard anybody say that in the ring, and it meant a lot to me because I'm bisexual too. And she hugged me. I was yo, this is why I do this shit, I'm not saying I can change the lives of children, because I know that I'm a naughty character, but just moments like that are why I stick around and do that kind of shit. You know what I mean?
Oh, I totally get it. I was in a band off and on for 20 years, and there's nothing better than being in front of people doing cool shit, so I totally get that.
One of my fans was watching me from the fucking hospital, through her husband's Skype, when I was out in Rochester the last time, because she got sick the day of, and I was just and just to I blew her a kiss, and she's Felicia just blew me a kiss. I'm yo, this is that right there is why I do this shit, because it's fucking fun.
Yes.
And I want to show other girls that they can be badass too, and they don't have to take a bump if they don't feel like it. Fuck it.
Right. Hey man, Miss Elizabeth never took a bump.
Seriously, what the fuck? Never mind. I'm not going to go on that rant.
That's fine.
It's a whole other rant.
That's fine. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. I think
no one wants this anymore.
Oh, stop it. We definitely should have you back in the future. I knew you'd have a good story to tell, but before we wrap up, I want to make sure you plug your Twitter, Instagram, your many-vids, whatever you want to plug. Go for it.
Sure. You can follow me on Twitter at Felicia Rose. You can follow me on Twitter naked at Felicia Rose Raw. You can follow me on ManyVids at Felicia Raw. You can follow me on Instagram at People's Tramp. You can follow me on Facebook at I Am Felicia Rose. And you can follow me on YouTube at Felicia Rose. Also, my podcast is The Screw Podcast, which you can follow at The Screw NYC on Twitter and Instagram. Be sure to listen anywhere where you get your podcast. It's super good. We're going to have, I think, RG City on this week. Pretty sick. You guys should definitely tune in. And I think that's it.
Holy shit.
This will be in the future, so whatever. We'll have him on last week.
Okay, perfect. Holy shit, that's a lot of handles. Okay. I say keep grinding, keep doing what you're doing. You're definitely one of the better follows on Twitter. I'll give you that.
Oh, yeah, I have a pro wrestling tease also, which is
Yes.
also Felicia Rose. So.
Yes. Congrats on getting on Pro Wrestling Tees. I mean, you got to be somebody to get on there, right?
I don't know. They asked me, so I was into it. Whatever.
All right. Cool. Well, I really appreciate you getting on the call with me today, even if you have been drinking and taking you out of your social life and or work environment. But definitely appreciate you coming on. We should talk again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
We'll talk soon. I'm sure I'll see you on Twitter.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Middle Age Crazy, the show that proves being an adult doesn't have to suck. Brought to you by moonsaltmusic.info. Underground and independent hip-hop for the old heads. Free downloads available now. All show inquiries can be sent to middleagecrazypod@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Middle Age Pod. Call us at 515-478-3412. Ask for Janice. Middle Age Crazy is a Greg Valentine and Clarence J. Washington production.